Hey artists, we're going to go ahead and get started on our Monarch Butterfly project. You're going to have a piece of paper in front of you that looks like this. You want to make sure that it is turned the vertical way or up and down. So it says TOP right there, that's the top right there. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to fold our paper in half. And you want to do your very, very best job making sure that the corners line up as best as possible and the edge of that paper lines up really well. Then you're going to give this a nice, smooth, crisp fold. Now while that paper is closed, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to write my name, first name and last name, and same in Miss Smith's class, I'm just going to write Smith on there. Of course, whoever's class you're in, you're going to write that class name on there, okay? So whoever's class your teacher is right there. I'm going to open it back up. I've got this nice crisp line going down the center of my paper. Now at your tables, you'll have one picture of a monarch butterfly. It might not be this exact picture, but you'll have one to use for reference. And you'll also be able to see this up on the screen as well. Your paintbrush choices, we've got the flat tip paintbrush and we've got the round tip paintbrush. We'll have both out for you. It is up to you which one you want to use, or you can also use a combination of both. Let's see, I might start with my round tip paintbrush. And again, using just the tippy tip, to make sure that paintbrush stays nice and good, I'm going to start to paint. I'm going to start to paint the body of the butterfly. I'm actually going to start pretty low because I want plenty of room for my wings. So I'm going to start a little bit above halfway up the paper. Now as I'm painting, I want you to notice a couple things. I'm only going to be painting on half of the paper. I'm only going to be painting on half of the paper. Because this is a printmaking project, we're going to paint on half of the paper and then we're going to print to the second half of the paper. So you can see I started with the little head right there. I might take his little chest area out a tiny bit more. And look at the control that I have with just using the tippy tip of that paintbrush. Easy peasy. And then going down. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop right there because I want to do this while the paint is still wet. That's very, very important, guys. I'm going to go ahead and fold and press and rub. And voila. So I've got my little butterfly body right there. And I'm glad, actually, I dripped a little tiny drip right there. You can see that little drip printed on both sides too. That is probably going to happen. Don't worry about it. Just embrace it and go with it. There's some cool things that have happened by accident. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my flat tip paintbrush. You can keep using your round tip paintbrush. That is absolutely fine. I'm going to start that big arching wing going up. So I'm going to start a little bit below the head. I'm going to do a barely curved line, but arching up towards the corner of that paper. Make sure I got enough. And they're going all the way up. Now, while that is still wet, very important, I'm going to go ahead and fold and press and rub. You don't want to leave this closed for too long because you don't want that paint to dry. If that paint dries, your paper will likely tear. Oop, I got another little drop on there. That's okay. It's going to look cool. Okay, so you can see how that printed to both sides. Now, I noticed the bottom part of my top wing starts just a little bit below the top part of that top wing. I'm going to take it out, kind of like so. I'm going to stop a decent amount before I get to the edge of the paper because I want to be able to get that edge of the wing shape. Now, while it is still wet, I'm going to fold and press and rub and open up. I didn't get very much paint right there. Now, I might decide, you know what, that's okay. Or I might decide, oh, I really want a little bit more paint on the other side. I'm not going to just directly paint the other side. I'm still going to go back. I'm going to paint my first side very carefully with a little bit more paint. And then I'm going to fold and press and rub. And see, I've got more paint there. Easy peasy. Now, the edge of that top wing, I'm going to give it a little bit of a kind of wibbly wobbly line and go up. And notice I went up and then I went out, just like the shape of that wing. I want to make this look really accurate. Fold and press and rub. There we go. Moving to the bottom of the wing, or the bottom wing, we have a habit of thinking that the wing might start at the bottom of the body. It really doesn't. If you look right up here, it starts a decent amount up. So I'm going to go ahead and start a decent amount up from the tip of the tail, and I'm going to go down like so. Again, I don't want to paint very much before I stop and fold and rub, so I'm going to stop and fold and rub. Yeah, I didn't get much paint on that side, but I kind of like how that looks. I like that printed effect. Now, the top of the bottom wing, I'm going to have coming out just a little bit like so. Again, I'm not doing very much before I fold and press and rub, so I'm going to go ahead and fold and press and rub. I did that awfully fast. Did you see that? Okay. Now I'm going to connect the top and the bottom parts of the bottom wing, and you'll notice that I've got a little kind of a wibbly wobbly line kind of curving around, so I'm going to go ahead and get that in and connect those. Again, while it's still wet, very important, I'm going to go ahead and fold and press and rub. Ah, look, I didn't get very much right there. I might do a little bit more. Remember, if you don't get much on that one side or the second side, you're going to paint the first side. You're not going to go over and paint the second side. So I just added a little bit more paint as carefully as I possibly can to that little wibbly wobbly side, and then I fold and press and rub. Ah, much better. Yes. Okay, moving right along, we're going to be adding in some of the details on the wings. This is great to have that photo to reference. Since it's a little bit darker on the edge of that wing, I'm going to kind of go in and darken up that first side, or that right side, the top wing, kind of that edge. And darken it in with the black paint a little bit, but I'm making sure that I'm leaving some areas of white, some little holes of the white. Now, if that gets covered up, don't worry about it, but just do your best. Fold and press and rub. There we go. I like that. Again, if that gets completely covered with the black, don't worry about it, because we will be going back over these with pastels ultimately before we finish. I'm also going to add a little bit of extra black right here. Whoop. Your patterns and what you're doing right here do not have to look exactly like mine, guys. You can look at the Monarch Butterfly for yourself and kind of make some of these judgment calls. I noticed that it's got a kind of thick black area in the bottom wing too, right along the edge. So I'm going to go back through the bottom area, and I'm going to add, now I'm using my flat tip paintbrush, so I'm getting a nice wide line up like that. So you can see how I'm mimicking the edge of that wing. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to fold and press and rub. Voila. I know you're doing a great job with these, guys. I can't wait to see what these look like. Going ahead, see these little lines and these little stripes. I see this major line coming up from the top of the body, kind of going up towards that wing, the edge. I'm going to go ahead, do that little sweeping line. I might even kind of make it into a little oval or a diagonal teardrop shape. I'm going to go ahead, fold and press and rub. Remember, you don't want to do too much before you fold and press and rub. Whoop. Ah, I'm liking that. Now off of there, I'm seeing another line going this way. I'm going to go ahead with that. Whoop. And while I've got you here, I'm just going to go ahead with this. You probably want to break that down into 2 little steps. All right, so I filled that up. I'm going to go ahead and fold and press and rub. What I just did, again, you might want to do in 2 steps. Okay, now I've got that. I'm going to move along to the bottom. And again, just painting on one side. I'm seeing these awesome little lines going down. So I'm going to get a few of these in. For time's sake, guys, I'm going to do 2 at one time. But again, you might want to break this down into a couple steps. You notice I kind of looped it around. I made it into kind of a long, runny teardrop shape. Press and rub, and open back up. Get my paint out again. Taking this down. Oh, I see this really cool little, it's almost like another wing shape right there. I'm going to get that Going down, looping it back up, little boop right there, and back up. Fold and press and rub. I'm liking how this is looking. Now I'm going to get some of these extra little lines, or look, they kind of look like fat little fingers coming down. This does not have to be perfect, guys. This does not have to look just like mine. I'm doing this a lot faster just for the time's sake of you having the time to do this. So when you're doing this part, you might want to break it down, and notice I got those little lines in there. You might want to break it down into a couple more steps. All right, fold and press and rub, and there we go. Now I'm actually pretty happy with him. You are going to be having pastels, so any parts that you do want to darken up, you can darken with the pastels. But I noticed the body right here is kind of light, so I'm going to take my time right now to go ahead and darken up a little bit of that body. I just want a little bit more dark paint. Your black paint will probably be a lot darker than this. For some reason, the black paint was a little bit separated this morning when I got it out, and it should probably be mixed up a lot better when you're doing this. Now I can see how the body's a lot darker now. I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. I know that we've got antennas, but I would rather wait to get my antennas with the Sharpie next week, or the next class, or next time we work on these, rather than trying to do it with the paint and getting like big, thick antennas, because you don't want that. Great job, guys. I can't wait to see these.